Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer or subscriber. Today's video I've been so excited about. I've honestly been counting down the months until I can film it. But at the same time, it is kind of shocking and tragic that we are halfway through 2023, but it's summertime, so I can't complain. Today's video is going to be the mid-year book Freakout tag, which is honestly one of my favourite books. Great. One of my favourite tags and my favourite videos, full stop, in the booktube, book-to-net, like, stratosphere. It's basically a bunch of questions all pertaining to what books you've read throughout the year, what you thought of those books, and what books you hope to finish or get to in the latter half of the year. It's pretty long, so I think we should just get straight into it. But yeah, I'm just so hyped. So the very first question is probably one of the most exciting ones, and that is, what is your favourite book that you've read so far this year? I would have to say Monkey Diaries by Jemima. So I've had about 3 or 4 5-star reads so far this year, which is quite impressive for me because I'm really picky with what books I give 5 stars. But I didn't want to mention the ones because they're going to come up later on in the tag and like different questions, so I decided to mention this one, plus it is like fighting for like spot number 1 on my favourite books list. So this is basically Jane Birkin's diaries between the years 1957 to 1982, and I just loved every single second of it. It is so interesting to see a life that was kind of so public, but to kind of see the more personal sides of it. And the fact that it's diaries and not a memoir means you do get kind of every single little bit of information, that all these kind of exterior things that we can see in real life. It's just wonderful. If you're a fan, or if you're at all interested, or if you just want to kind of like experience another person's life experience, diaries are the most beautiful, magical things, and I would recommend this one, obviously. The best sequel you've read so far this year. I struggled a little bit with this question, or quite a lot with this question, because first of all, I haven't read that many sequels. I don't read as much fantasy as I used to, and fantasy is generally the genre that has sequels in it. That's been a problem. Plus I just haven't managed to get to as many. I've been reading quite a lot of new to me authors and a lot of standalone books. So the few sequels I have read, first of all, this doesn't really count, but it's like the first book in a continuation series from the Cruel Prince series, which I loved. I gave every single book 5 stars, but the more I think about this book, the more I think it was kind of mid. I gave it 4 stars at the time, but I think it's probably more like a 3.5. So I kind of don't want to talk about this one. But then my other options are Fracture Me and Ignite Me from the Shatter Me series, of which I dislike both. Then Better Than the Prom, which was a novella following Better Than the Movies, which I loved, but that also got quite a average rating. I'm gonna have to say The Solitaire, but just read the Cruel Prince series basically, and if you're a massive fan of that, then read this one. I'm still holding out hope because this book is the first in a duology, so maybe the second book will be better, but kind of unimpressed with this one, to be honest with you. It was good, just wasn't like Holly Black's usual standard, I feel. Number 3, a new release that is out but you haven't read yet. So many new releases that I want to get my hands on. I really want to see what the hype is about with Fourth Wing, waiting till the paperback releases, which I think is September, October, November, I don't know, sometime in autumn, the paperback releases, and then I'll pick it up and see what the hype's about. That's like a dragon romance fantasy book, and it's getting so much love at the minute. The Villa, can't remember the author, but it's like, is it like a mystery? I don't know, just like the setting. It's set in some Mediterranean country, and it's full of writers and creatives, and I think it's historical fiction. It just sounds beautiful. Actually, I think it could be to do with Lord Byron and Mary Shelley. Percy Shelley? I'm not sure actually, I could be totally lying, but yeah, that one sounds beautiful. And again, I would kind of like to wait for the paperback. But the book that I like want to read the most in the entire world right now is the sequel to The Idiots by Elif Batuman. This was my favourite book of last year, and the sequel came out last year but in hardcover, and it's only just come out in paperback this year. I can't get my hands on it because I really need the US edition to match my US edition of the first book. One day I'm just going to bite the bullet and order it on US Amazon and pay massive customs fees, or I'm gonna wait because I'm going to Florida in November. That's gonna be a struggle because I want to read that book so badly. This book follows Selin. She's a first-year Harvard student, and in the second book we're following her to her second year. Selin's one of my favorite characters ever. This book was beautiful. It's basically about this kind of unrequited love. It's also a little bit of a coming of age, watching and kind of experiencing first year alongside Selin. Loved it so much. Most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I've got a couple of different ones. Like I said, because I haven't been reading like a lot of series, I don't have like next books I'm kind of waiting for, but there are a couple of kind of standalone releases that I'm kind of intrigued by. First is Rouge, which is by Mona Awad. She's the author of Bunny and of All's Well, and I think she might have written something else, but I don't know. First of all, absolutely one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen in my entire life. I might just be buying that hardcover because, I mean, it's just ridiculously beautiful. Second of all, I'm going to read you the little tagline that they market this book as, right? A horror-tinted gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Are you kidding? This girl, I think she's called Belle, gets kind of caught up in this place called La Maison de Méduse, which is like a spa retreat, but it's kind of like culty. I don't know. It sounds very cool. And I would love to read some more awad. I definitely have Bunny on my TBR, but I don't own the book yet. And then the other book I have to mention is Masters of Death by Olivie Blake. Olivie Blake is the author of The Atlas Six and Alone with You in the Ether, both books that I would love to get to, don't own once again. But yeah, essentially in this book, a vampire hires the godson of death to help rid their mansion of ghosts. Are you kidding? Ridiculous. So Rouge is released on the 14th of September and Masters of Death is on the 3rd of August, which is a little bit odd, but I might save that one till October time. And then the other book that I'm kind of waiting for is a little bit different, but it's just the paperback of a book that came out last year, and that's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Sometimes the paperbacks of books, I'm just like, yikes. But the UK really lucked out on that one. I'm almost certain I'm going to love it. I would really love the paperback. Right, slightly less exciting question. We have, what has been your biggest disappointment so far this year? Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi. Hopefully this is the most disappointing book of this entire year, so we don't have any more in the latter half. You know, fingers crossed, we can hope. This is truly the one I'm most disappointed by. This is the 3rd book in the Shatter Me series. It's meant to be kind of like a little bit of a conclusion before we get on into like the second half of that series, which was written many years after the first half. It's a dystopian. There was 0 plots. There was so much character drama, which we've just been dragging our heels through for the past 2 books. Action in this book, which should have been like the majority of this book, or at least the last half, happened in the last like 30 pages. Everyone we love survived. Like the whole thing was just like, I just felt like I was wasting my time basically. Thankfully these books are quite quick reads. If they were not, I don't know what I would have done. I'm going to read the next book in this series because I own it, but then I might call it quits if it's anything like this. I was so disappointed. I gave the first book like a 4.5, I gave the second book about a 3, and this one was a 2, although it probably should be lower to be honest. And the other book that I was super disappointed by, but not quite as much as this one, was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a little novella she wrote. I was really interested in this book because it's basically 2 parties, innocent parties, whose spouses are having affairs with each other, and we're following the letters of the innocent parties. I thought this was going to give the vibe of In the Mood for Love, which is one of my favourite ever films. It just didn't even come close to that. It was so disgraceful. I don't know why it was written, to be honest. The ending just ruined the entire thing. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was such a no. But Ignite Me was a bigger disappointment because I have been sitting through the entire series and fell at the last hurdle. Number 6 is your biggest surprise, and for this I have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. The reason why this was a bigger surprise is because it's a YA contemporary romance book. Generally I don't get on well with that genre or that sub-genre, but this one was a 5-star read for me. It's one of my favourite books of the year. I thought it was absolutely great. It was perfect for what it was. We're following 2 people, Wes and Liz. Liz has got a crush on this boy at her school and she enlists Wes to help her. A little bit like a fake dating kind of thing, but basically to get the interest of this boy. And over the course of the novel, of course, instead of Liz falling in love with the boy she has a crush on, she falls in love with Wes. And it's just a beautiful story, so perfect for teenagers, and I love it. I think they're adapting actually, which I'm really excited about. That was amazing. Such a pleasant surprise. Favourite new author, debut or new to you? I've got 2 authors to mention for this. First of all is Annie Ernaux. She wrote Single Passion, which is another 5-star read of mine this year, kind of vying for top spots, like up against the Jane Birkin book. Yeah, this is beautiful. It's an account of an affair which Ernaux herself was involved with, although generally kind of hate cheating. I found this to be really beautifully written, kind of was a different view of an affair, kind of stepping away from the kind of controversy of it, kind of following the other side of it, if that makes any sense. It's like The Other Woman, essentially. It's just such a quick little read. Ernaux's writing was remarkable, which is why she's my favourite new author. I would love to read more of her stuff. I have another book by hers called Getting Lost on my TBR, and I would love to get to that in the latter half of the year, which is a bit of a spoiler for a question coming later. So that's the first author. And the other one that is also new to me is Deborah Levy. I read the first book in her 3-part living autobiography on writing womanhood. Loved it. I really loved her writing style. I loved what we saw of her as a person. Found it very inspirational as someone who hopes to publish some written work in the future at some time. Newest fictional crush. I have no idea how old this man is, but Julian from Caraval. Loved him, honestly. So many beautiful scenes in here. I love his personality. By the looks of it, he's not very attractive, and it probably did help that my audiobook narrator put on a Spanish accent for his character. We'll just leave it there. The other one is Colonel Brandon in Sense and Sensibility. This is a book that I'm actually in the middle of at the moment. I'm about exactly 50% of the way through. I think he is just wonderful. People treat him so badly. He's just the sweetest, loveliest man, and I partially feel sorry for him, but also I think he's just so above them all that, like, he's got nothing to worry about, you know what I mean? I can't wait to read more of his characters specifically. I've also watched the adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, and I think that's perfect casting. Number 9 is your newest favourite character, and for that I would say Connor Cobalt from Addicted to You. He's got the silliest name, but I really loved him so much. I found he was one of those people who was so annoying at the beginning, and then as we got further throughout the book you kind of like understood his weird ways, and I had such a soft spot for him. I think he's wonderful. He's so like kind-hearted and a great friend to Lily and Lo. Definitely can't wait to read more of this series, in particular the books that are focused on him and Rose. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. I've got a couple of different ones. I haven't had anything that's really made me sob, but things that made me tear up, so I thought we'd quickly run through them all. So Most of All You, difficult subject matter, but the most beautiful romance book, and the connection between the two main characters was what kind of brought me to tears. Monkey Diaries. I am a member of the John Barry Hay Club. That man basically had an affair when he was married to Jane. They had a big age gap and he treated her so terribly. She was a young girl, and I know we're only getting her POV, but like, if that's anything to go by, like, oh my goodness. Not a fan of him at all. I believe I teared up in that boner, but I can't remember what it was. Hopefully it wasn't out of disgust. That's a possibility. Addicted to You, there's this beautiful scene where Lily opens up about her struggles to Rose at the end of it, her sister. I was just like reading this in bed, crying. You know how it is. You know the vibe. The Yellow Kitchen, again, I don't really remember what I cried at, but something happened in this book. Sorry about that. And lastly, You and Me on Vacation. I teared up at a literal smut scene, which is kind of unacceptable. It's because it was so beautiful and wholesome, and again, like, the connection between these people was elite. So those are the books that made me cry. Like I said, none of these really made me sob, so I can't really give one of them like the title of the book that made me cry so far this year, but who knows, maybe we'll read some sad ones in the next 6 months. But kind of linking on from that question, we have a book that made you happy, You and Me on Vacation, once again. So this book both made me cry but also made me very happy. I recently made a list on Goodreads of books that made me happy because I had one for books that made me cry. I just realised, like, I do laugh out loud at some books, and this was definitely one of those. Emily Henry is known for her banter between her characters. There's lots of very funny moments. Abby is actually reading this right now. We were sitting next to each other both reading our different books, and she was reading this one and she kept laughing, and I was just like, yes. Number 12, the most beautiful book that you have acquired so far this year. I basically went through all my book haul videos that I've been filming across the year. I'll have them all linked down below. I'll have the playlist linked up in the cards as well. And I was like, yeah, it could be that one, it could be that one, it could be that one. And then I was like, oh my goodness, hold up. It's 100% this one. This is a book I actually haven't hauled yet. I think it's probably going to be in my next book haul, which will be in like a couple of weeks time. So this is a bit of a spoiler for that, but this is just unreal. Look at it. This is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. It's a Faber and Faber special edition. I found it online. I've seen so many editions of this book, but this is the one I just had to have. So beautiful. I've never actually read this book, but I would love to get to it, hopefully sometime soon. If I had my own house, I would have this out on display. Question 13 is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? I filmed a 2023 TBR video at the beginning of this year, obviously, and there's definitely some books in that I haven't yet got to. So we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'd love to read that in the kind of like September, October, November season. We have My Body by Emily Ratajkowski in that list as well, and a couple of other things. You can definitely check out that video if you would like to see what are the books I'm hopefully going to get to the end of the year. I'll have that linked. But I would also love to read Twisted Games. I read Twisted Love. These are kind of interconnected kind of standalones. Twisted Love was an interesting read. I mean, I think I gave it 2.5 stars. It was very, yes, I was not like personally offended by how bad it was, but I was like, this book is not good. Love to hate it, you know. It was like one of those ones. Anyways, I'm holding out hope for this book. If I don't like this one, then probably give up on the series, honestly. But if I do enjoy this one, then I will definitely continue. The second book is generally people's favourite, so I'm excited to see what I think. I want to read this before I forget all of what happened in Twisted Love, although that would be quite difficult because some of that book was absolutely wild. Trust me. We also have Ricochet by Kristen Becker Ritchie, which is the second book in the Addicted series. I would love to film a one book focused reading vlog on this one. It's going to be coming super soon, actually, make more progress in the Addicted series. We have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. The movie adaptation of this book is coming out in November of this year, I think, sometime in the autumn time. But yeah, I'd love to do a vlog again reading this book just before the movie's release. Could be a fun idea. We have Legendary by Stephanie Garber, the second book in the Caraval series. I reread Caraval earlier this year. That was the one that was featuring Julian, who I was a little bit in love with. And I reread it so that I could continue with the series because it'd been too long between the first and second books. So I really do need to read this one before I forget Caraval and have to reread it for the second time. That would be good. And lastly, I would just love to read more No. So like I said, I have Getting Lost, which is the book that's kind of linked with Simple Passion, which like I said, I love, 5 stars. And again, I don't want to leave too much time between these two books because connected with one another. And then the final question, question 14, is your favourite book to movie adaptation? I've actually seen very few films this year, which is disappointing. I would definitely want to change that narrative in the next 6 months. I've watched 3 books of movie adaptations, or 4 if you count Prince of Egypt as a book to movie adaptation, because it is an adaptation from the Bible, which is a book. But I think we're gonna leave that one out. So the movies I've seen that are all book adaptations are Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. This is a book that I read in January. Wasn't obsessed with it. I think I gave it 2.5 stars. I watched the adaptation straight after. I think that was a rewatch actually, and I really enjoyed that film. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't anything like kind of lasting. Second is The Spiderwick Chronicles. I haven't actually read the book. I do own the books. Spiderwick Chronicles is one of my favorite ever films. It's like a 5-star for me. It's just the best. I definitely want to read the books for that. But I think for this question, I'm going to say Alice in Wonderland, and this is the animated Disney version. I've seen an old live action adaptation of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but this year I actually read the book for the first time, and then I watched the animated film the first time, and I think I gave both of those 3 stars. I was probably a little bit disappointed, definitely by the book, but it was a fun experience and I'm glad I did it. I wish I'd read that book and watched that film when I'd been a lot younger, so I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but regardless, it was still a fun time. So there you have it, everybody. That's the mid-year book freakout tag for you. I had such a fun time filming this video and collecting all these books and kind of curating my answers to these questions. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up so I can tell that you did, and I will see you very, very soon for another video. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and I like to think that we have a good time around here. Thank you so much for watching. Sending love to you on this warm summer's day here in England. Bye.